Howdy there, Patreon, and welcome back to the Help Review, where I rate and review the help, i.e., our politicians who ostensibly work for us. This week, it's Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who is totally a real human and definitely not a reptilian horror in a person suit. I mean, think about it. If you were going to wear a human suit in an effort to blend in and obscure the true Stygian nature of your form, would you pick one that looks like Ted Cruz? I mean, come on. What self-respecting product of the soulless void is going into the human suit store? Like, yeah, what do you got that's dumpy and constipated? That's what I'm looking for. It just doesn't make sense, you know? I mean, unless, of course, he's like being sentenced to exist in our realm as punishment for his transgressions back in his home dimension, you know, like maybe his betters in the joyless Everblight decreed that so grave were his crimes there, he must now waddle the earthly plane in the form of a thrice divorced meatball salesman forever. Maybe that's what it is. That could explain it, maybe, or maybe he's just a regular actual person. I don't know. It's hard to say. Anyway, Ted Cruz was born Raphael Edward Cruz in December 1970 in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This is one of those things that you've heard before, but every time you hear it, you get pissed off all over again. You're like, that motherfucker should have been Canada's problem this whole time. But no, man, Canada took one look at baby Ted Cruz and said, send it to Texas. Maybe they'll shoot it. That's what they do there. But so far, no dice, Canada. All right, look what you've done. I hope you're proud of yourself. I guess we'll let it slide since you gave us Schitt's Creek and Norm Macdonald, but still, if you're an American and you didn't know this, and right now you're thinking, no, seriously, what the hell? Can we send him back to Canada? How does this work? Here's what happened. Ted was born there. His mother was a white American lady. His Cuban dad moved to Texas when Ted was 4, and a year later, the family joined him there. See, his parents worked in the oil industry, and it is a fundamental law of the universe that any oil money hellspawn must eventually find its way to Texas. And so it was with Ted. By the way, he started going by Ted instead of Raphael when he was 13, which I feel like indicates some early political ambitions. You know, at 13, he looked around Texas and was like, oh man, this Raphael shit ain't going to play. I need to do something about this. I'm just surprised that it worked, though, because every middle schooler I've ever known, if you told them, hey, my name's Ted now, guys, they would have just been like, whatever you say, Raffy. Hey, Raffy says he's Ted now. Fuck you, Raffy. But apparently it worked, so good for Ted. All right. Before I move on, I'm going to keep it real with y'all. Ted Cruz's youth is kind of objectively impressive. Private school, valedictorian, Princeton, Harvard Law, cum laude, honor societies, national awards and accolades, editor at Harvard Law Review. Frankly, the list goes on. Apparently, when you're an exiled nether fiend belched from the plains of endless suffering, the world of rich white academia is a bit of a walk in the park. Listen, and as an aside, as much as I hate Ted Cruz, I'm not going to bullshit here. He was kind of a world beater early on, which I think makes him even more monstrous. You know, like it's easy to look at people on the far right and think, God, how could you be so stupid? But it's important to remember that a lot of them are not at all stupid. Some of them are, in fact, very smart. Now think of how much you have to suck out loud as a person to be that smart and still feel the way they feel about things. They're worse than the idiots. Idiots can't help that they're idiots, but the Ted Cruzes of the world know better and choose to be the way they are, and that's worse. But I digress. He got into law. He worked on W's campaign. He ultimately became the Solicitor General of Texas under then AG and now Governor Greg Abbott. Yeah, it's pieces of shit all the way down, y'all. And his time in this office is a good illustration of what I was saying about the evils of competent conservatism, because during his time there, he argued more cases in front of the Supreme Court than anybody else. He won a bunch of them, and every damn one of them was some conservative papal bullshit, okay? He defended the 10 Commandments being in the Texas Capitol building. He defended schools requiring all children to say under God during the Pledge of Allegiance. He defended a landmark gerrymandering case. There was a guy in Texas who got arrested for stealing a calculator from Walmart and sentenced to 17 years. This weirdly pissed people off who thought it was unfair, but Ted upheld the sentence, saying justice was being served. He went into private practice. He left that position and went into private practice where he represented Pfizer and other big pharma companies. So basically, any evil white person opinion you can think of, Ted Cruz has been its lawyer in a formal capacity at one point in time. He's like the exact opposite of RBG. So naturally, it's time for him to get into politics, right? He ran for Senate in 2012 as a Tea Party candidate, right at the very height of the Tea Party movement. Man, the Tea Party. How insane is it that those lunatics almost seem like quaint now, looking back on it? You know, like at the time, to me and to a lot of people, they straight up represented the downfall of American society. But now, post-Trump, you almost get whimsical about them. You're like, man, I sure do miss the days when the craziest Republicans were just small government maniacs who wanted to abolish healthcare and public education and let corporations murder the earth with impunity. Like whatever happened to those guys, man? Don't get me wrong, dude. The Tea Party's a fucking nightmare, but tell me right now you wouldn't take them over this fucking mayonnaise apocalypse shit show we got going on, right? That's all I'm saying. Cruz's main thing early on was hating Barack Obama, very popular. He led the effort to kill Obamacare, never could do it, I like to point out, including shutting down the government in an attempt to achieve that. During that process, he read Green Eggs and Ham as part of a filibuster attempt, presumably because he had heard somewhere that humans enjoy that book. What's wild about Ted Cruz is that even though he has always played right down the conservative fairway on every issue, most of his Republican colleagues seem to think him a bit of a bag of shit. John McCain hated him, called him a wacko, said he was a disgrace. John Boehner called him Lucifer in the flesh. Lindsey Graham said if you killed Ted Cruz on the Senate floor and the trial was held in the Senate, no one would convict you. Do you know how much you have to suck for Republican congressmen to think you suck? A lot. All right. But of course, like all prominent Republicans in this country, Ted's relationship with Donald Trump would completely redefine his ability to suck. Like Lindsey Graham from a previous episode, Ted Cruz took an immediate stand against Trump in 2016. And like Lindsey Graham, he would eventually retreat, mewling and shamed into the nether regions of Trump's colon forever. But it was particularly egregious for Ted, though, as he was Trump's only real competition in the primaries. And as such, things got pretty ugly. And I mean literally ugly, as in Trump called his wife fucking ugly. He also claimed that Ted's dad helped to assassinate JFK. He called Ted Cruz a weak, stupid little baby. I think they argued over their dicks at one point. I also would remind you that in between doing all this shit with Ted Cruz, Trump also was grabbing pussies and mocking disabled people and disrespecting dead veterans, and he became the goddamn president. What the fuck is wrong with us? Anyway, Ted didn't take kindly to all those insults, and he very publicly refused to endorse Trump after bowing out of the race. He said, I'm not in the habit of supporting people who attack my wife and attack my father. You go and slander and attack Heidi. I'm not going to nonetheless just come to you like a servile puppy dog and say, thank you very much for maligning my wife and maligning my father. I'm not going to do that. Pretty straightforward words there from Ted. Also, on September 23rd, he publicly endorsed Trump for president. So there you have it. I got to be honest, if not for literally everything about him, I might kind of appreciate Trump just for how resoundingly and publicly he humiliated and subjugated the Ted Cruzes of the world. Like, it's hard to imagine anyone shaming themselves more thoroughly or on a grander stage than Ted Cruz did with Donald Trump. The only issue, of course, is that Ted is utterly bereft of shame. Perhaps he only had a limited number of human attributes to choose from when taking his corporeal form, and traits like shame, dignity, self-respect, empathy, likability. None of those made the cut. I guess that's what happened. He also apparently skipped the How to Smile class at Impersonating Humans school. These days, Ted mostly just resides in Donald's butt, leaving only periodically for his ritual public embarrassments. The very day that I'm filming this, Ted has tweeted about Afghanistan saying, Americans don't leave Americans behind. Yes, well, you may recall that Ted himself very famously left some Americans behind, the exact Americans he had been charged with serving, in fact, to fly to Cancun during the worst winter storm in recent Texas history. But look, to be fair to Ted, snow is like really bad for his human suit. Okay. So that's what Ted's up to nowadays, just flitting around from shame to shame, either ignoring or reveling in the fact that he's one of the most universally disliked figures in all of American politics. Oh, also, he might be the Zodiac killer, apparently. Listen, I don't know about that, but he's definitely peeled a person before, for sure. Like, he has absolutely watched the light go out of a few sets of eyeballs. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But again, to be fair to Ted, if he does not periodically refill his sorrow bladder, then his true form could wither and perish. So what are you going to do, All right, so for his rating, listen, like all red-blooded Americans, I fucking hate Ted Cruz just so much. But I feel like he's proven himself to ultimately be pretty ineffectual and thus non-threatening. Now, listen, we all should be grateful that the Filth Ward Elder Council did not grant him the human traits of charisma or savvy upon his banishment from the fathomless depths below, because a version of Ted Cruz with actual people skills, as opposed to people skulls like in his closet, am I right, would be a serious threat to us all. As it stands, though, I will give Ted Cruz 2.5 out of 4 mushroom clouds. I'll see y'all next time. I love you like chicken.